Hey, everybody, welcome. I am really stoked to have perhaps the youngest, I'm sure the youngest guest I've ever had on the podcast, but maybe one of the most successful, especially in his niche on YouTube. This is Michael DiMuccio. His father's been a friend of mine for decades, and Michael is a YouTube phenom. And before I get into asking him a few questions, I just want to go back over some stats just to give you some context. So Michael's been doing videos on YouTube for about 10 years. He has over 400 episodes on his YouTube channel. The average number of views per video is 4 million.
I didn't even know that. To be honest, I didn't even know.
Yeah, 4 million.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
The number one viewed video has 81 million views, Michael. 81 million. And total, you have 3.4 billion views on YouTube.
Yeah.
And how old are you?
I'm 22.
I don't know if we're going to get into the monetization of that. That might be fun to dig into. I'm sure people are.
I can briefly touch on it if you'd it kind of depends. It's not as crazy as you think it would be, for what I do in specific. But there are certain regions in YouTube where the monetization does get pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, tell us who you are. I know a lot about your dad, but I don't know much about you. Mm-hmm. What was it like growing up in the DiMuccio household, and how did you get trained to be such an incredible creative entrepreneur?
Well, we grew up in a very pretty loving and encouraging household. I was never told no or shot down for when I was doing things. When I was a kid, I would use my iPad and make fake movie trailers on iMovie, and I still have a couple of those, and they're pretty funny. And I was kind of like a weird kid. I was very open and I was coming up with new ideas all the time, and I was playing a lot of video games as well. And then towards the high school days, I kind of got a little bit more shy. But around that time period is when I started experimenting on YouTube and posting my first couple of videos. And basically it's different with each generation, but for my generation, YouTube was considered the new celebrity. It was a way to monetize and express yourself without just from home. It felt like anyone could do it, and that's why a lot of people, especially in my age group, were YouTube is the coolest thing ever, and I want to be a YouTuber instead of an actor or an artist or whatever. A lot of kids nowadays want to be YouTubers and influencers, and so that's kind of what drove my initial curiosity towards the platform.
And what kind of influence was your dad, who I know has been a good friend of Bob Proctor's his whole life, and really deep into manifestation and mindset? And what kind of influence was he?
My dad was very he was very business forward in terms of he allowed me to pursue my business, and he was very supportive of I'll get into that in a little bit, but he basically raised us with the mindset of you can manifest your own reality. And he showed us a lifestyle that we would want to aim to achieve. And so he kind of played an influence in the way my mind kind of started operating. So basically a long time ago, there was a seminar that he was hosting in Toronto. At the time this was when I was around in high school, and this was a pivotal moment for me. There was a Bob Proctor was actually speaking at his event. And I wanted to go home and play the newest video game that came out. I was getting really mad because he asked me to come speak at his seminar, and I was like, okay, fine, but I just want to play the video game because it's coming out today and everyone's going to be playing it, and I really want to play it. And he eventually, after a long argument, he convinced me to stay for the Bob Proctor seminar, and that's really when my mental state kind of shifted, because he gave his whole pitch on manifestation and how you can tune into that frequency and really manifest your reality. And I remember me and my cousin ended up walking out of that seminar. We're like, we don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to be YouTubers one day. And you kind of just, once you have the end goal in mind and you start vibrating on that frequency, you don't really need to know what happens in between. The pieces kind of just fall into place because you know where you're going to end up.
You got it.
That's how my dad kind of raised us. He never really shut us down. He pretty much encouraged us to pursue our passions, but with like a little bit of like sternness to it. Like he made sure that we knew what we were getting into and that there were risks involved, but he never like shot us down. He always supported, and now he's one of my biggest supporters, if not my biggest supporter.
Right.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So your style, Michael, is you film like a lot of different characters, or at least a couple of characters in each of your films. I think I remember Eddie Murphy doing that in like Coming to America is the first time I ever saw that, where he played all these different parts. And so you do that in a funny, artful way. And for those of you that are dying to see one of his videos, there'll be a link to in the comments. You can watch the #1 viewed 81 million view video, which is kind of crazy. So how did you first of all, how did you come up with the idea, or what led to the idea of being a parody on kids playing video games? And then what led to the idea of playing different parts?
Yeah. So I'll give you essentially the rundown of how I started on social media.
Sure.
Because that will help lead into it. So I essentially, I was posting in high school a little bit. I didn't really know what I was doing. I wasn't doing the research. I kind of just posted a video because I thought it was funny and I thought it would do well. And then when it didn't do well, I got disappointed and discouraged, and then I stopped. Then the Bob Proctor seminar happened. I finished my last year of high school, and then I started in university. Now, my first year of university, I was not excited. I did not want to go to school because, to me, in my eyes, school has kind of felt like a little bit of a waste of time for me personally. Because I always felt I was doing really well in school, but I felt limited. Like I was forced to be doing things that weren't going to progress my future personally. And so during that first year of school, it was online. It was during COVID. I was playing a lot of video games. Basically, sometimes I'd have my lecture going on in the background, and I'd be playing a video game while listening to it. And what ended up happening was I was one of the first people in the world to complete this challenge on this video game. And so my older cousin, who's a musician in a band called Crash Adams, started on social media a little while back, and then his younger brother, who is also in gaming stuff, started a little bit after that. And so I called him, and it was like I told him about this challenge that I completed, and he was like, "Dude, you got to make a video about this. You got to make a TikTok." That was the big thing at the time, TikTok. So, I was like, "All right, fine." So I posted a video, and it got 8 million views in a week, and like I got 60,000 followers, and this was this. So to most people, they'd be like, "Oh wow, that's crazy," but to me, it was like, "Wow, this is like opportunity when preparation meets opportunity." Kind of that thing. And so I was
the point of our lives.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, this is my time. This is my chance to make this happen. And so I started posting every single day. I didn't know what I was doing. And so I started doing like tutorial videos about my video game, and I was doing okay. I was doing decent, but I wasn't doing like amazing. I wasn't making any money. And so eventually I started thinking, how can I scale this? How can I make it bigger? And what can I do differently to go more viral? And so I started looking more into the science, I guess, of going viral. I started doing research on like what people were saying on like how much watch time you need, what kind of hook you need. You need a good body of context. You need like a new rehook every 7 seconds or so. And so I started looking into these different strategies and implementing them into my content. Eventually, my cousin, actually, the one who does the gaming content as well, he did a skit video where he played all the characters, and it was about his game NBA 2K. And so he told me you should try doing one of those. And so I did one myself, and I noticed it did better than the tutorial videos I was posting. And I was like, okay, this has some merit to it. And so I kept doing it, and each time I would do it, I would look at where people were getting lost, where I thought the video might get boring. And for my next video, I would go in and advance on that and make sure that I was rehooking the audience. I was doing these different things to keep people going. And eventually my videos started to get more and more popular. And I was like, okay, let me up the quality. So then I bought a green screen. I started filming in my room. I bought some lights. And this was before I made any money. I had some money saved up in the bank. I've never had a real job. I've kind of just saved Christmas money, and I didn't go out. So I didn't go out at all. Like, not like all my friends were kind of busy bees in high school. I was kind of reserved, and I kept all my money. And so I actually had a reserve of like $5,000 or so, and I used that to buy some equipment. Also, the government was giving us money as well. But sorry, what was that?
What camera do you use?
I was using my iPhone at the time, my iPhone 6.
What do you use now?
Now I use like a real camera, like an A7S III.
Yep.
It's a pretty beefy camera. But yeah, at the time I was just using my phone. And so I remember the end of the semester came around. I was finally done school. I could focus full time on the content over the summer. And I said, I want to hit 1 million followers by the end of summer. And so I continued on these skits. I ended up improving my quality, coming up with new ideas that were just coming to me. And once you're in like a creative flow state, the ideas will just come to you. You'll just start manifesting and being in that embodiment of someone who is doing that. And I remember it was like, I think it was around August 30th, I hit 1 million followers on TikTok. And so yeah, my style kind of developed through watching what other people were doing while also trying to creatively incorporate it into my own style. And so I one of my friends, Corey, he was doing like the zoom effects. And so I was like, okay, what if I took the zoom effects and tried putting it into my stuff? And so eventually I kind of slowly stumbled upon a formula that was consistently working and then advanced on that. And that's how I kind of created my style. And yeah, and then so by the end of summer, I had 1 million followers on TikTok, and I started posting to YouTube, and the YouTube started doing well as well. And I had like 100,000 on YouTube by the end of summer. And then I was like to my parents, okay, I can see a large future in this for myself. I just want to take a year off school to like kind of prove it to you. And they were kind of hesitant at first, but my dad was a little bit more open to it because he could see like the business mindset behind him. I kind of gave them a pitch, and they were like, fine, but you need to sign a contract. So my dad made me draft up a contract of like things I need to do, like different criteria. One of them was like to be able to like support myself financially, essentially, within that year time span, or else I was going to go back to school. And I was like, okay, fine. So I signed it, and then 3 months later, I was fully supporting myself financially.
Wow.
Yeah, and I didn't make any money at the time. Literally, the money started coming in 3 months after I signed that contract. Yeah.
And so and you know, TikTok is, at least from what I hear, like that's the hot platform. What had you move or focus on YouTube versus TikTok?
I never stopped focusing on TikTok. What happened was YouTube introduced their short form. I always do short form content because it's the hot thing right now. It's what every platform has been pushing. Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels. It's short form is easily digestible, and it's easy to expand your audience at a rapid pace. And so YouTube introduced their short form version of content where instead of having it widescreen, it's vertical, it's short. And that's why, so I started re-uploading all my TikToks, my old stuff that I knew did well, onto YouTube, and that's what gave me my initial boost. The reason YouTube now is my main platform is because YouTube is much more consistent and it's more studyable. YouTube has like very in detail analytics, like click-through rate, average view duration, and then after studying like 100 videos, you can kind of start to see patterns. I actually made a spreadsheet one time of like average view time, click-through rate, all these different things, and then kind of sorted and tried to figure out, okay, what do I need to meet in order to get more and more views? And eventually I start, like once you get into a rhythm and you start to understand it, now I can be like, okay, I know what works, I know what I have to meet, I know why a video didn't do well, let me fix that for the next one. And so you start to game the platform essentially. And YouTube is very consistent versus TikTok. There was a lot of randomness on TikTok, and I could never, to be honest, I still haven't fully figured it out. But YouTube, I was able to kind of like crack in a sense where I know what does well.
Who's your partner in some of those videos?
That's my cousin. That's my other cousin who does the gaming stuff as well. His name's Emmanuel.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so you said you created a formula, and you know you call it you learned how to game YouTube. I would use the word mastery, and I love the process you went through, Michael, where you just kept looking at the data and then honing your strategy, looking at the data, honing your strategy, kept sharpening your axe and chopping down more trees. That's a beautiful process. Without giving it away, what could you generally tell us about your formula that you've arrived at with all these hooks and whatever else is in there? You said hook people every 7 seconds. I got to hear about that. How do you do that?
Half of learning what to do is also looking at what's working for other people. And so the second I started doing well on YouTube, I immediately went to start listening to podcasts. Like I stopped listening to music while I was at the gym or going on walks, and I would listen to podcasts. And one of them was like Mr. Beast, for example, who's the king of YouTube. And he was like, these are the things I noticed for myself. And a lot of people think like, to be honest, you can do this, but to just copy them exactly. And you can do it, and you'll probably do well, but it'll be hard for you to build a brand because everyone will just think you're just a copy of that other person. So instead of just copying what he was doing, I kind of tried to take little notes that he would do. So generally speaking, he said like you want to reintroduce like a hook every 7 or so seconds. It's not like an exact science. You don't have to do it like, you don't count like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and then redo another hook or anything. But you really just want to like, for short form example, it's a lot more, people are, the risk to reward ratio, like people will swipe away a lot easier than while they're watching a long form video, because then they have to like swipe off the long form video and click. Like short form is just a swipe. It's a swipe away and you're done. Yep. So you have to make sure. So for me, for example, I treat each video as if people have the attention span of a goldfish. And so I was like, okay, what can I do? So I started coming up with hooks that now set up a conflict at the beginning of the video, which is resolved at the end of the video, and then immediately end it. So that way you get the most amount of viewership throughout the video. And that's kind of just how I explain to other people who do social media. It's not an exact, like, you can't copy my formula because it only works for me right now. But you can take notes of what I'm doing and try to apply it to your own stuff to make it successful for you.
So for my audience's benefit and mine, because I think I can imagine what you mean by hook, but what is a hook? And can you give us an example in one of your videos? Like, so your number one video is how time flies when you're gaming. And so you rush home to watch this video game or you play this video game, and you're playing it maybe starting Friday afternoon and your mom comes in the room and starts yelling at you, and you don't realize it's actually Sunday evening or Sunday night. You've been playing for 3 days and you didn't know it. So what are the different hooks in that video that might show up every 7 to 10 seconds?
So the first hook, for example, is me running in my door. It makes you beg the question, like, why is he running into his house? Like, what's so exciting? And so then I go in, I hook them. I run to my room, and then there's like a payoff of why I'm running into my room. Everyone's excited, hopping on the game. And then right when you think it's about to get boring, then the mom comes in, new hook, new problem that needs to be solved. And she's talking, and we're trying to figure out why she's mad, even though whatever, like it has that question, like, what is the problem that's going on here, which is eventually solved. And then as soon as it's solved, I try to end the video as quickly as possible or in a funny way.
Yeah.
And yeah, just in general, a lot of my videos are built on like exaggeration and like
Right.
going over the top. And so, yeah, and it's just these small things that like kind of add up to make a full video.
In the very end of that video, it sounded like she slapped you.
Yeah.
What was that?
It was just like a belt sound, because it's just like it's a funny, like everyone knows the whole stereotype of like getting hit by a belt or whatever as a kid. And so I kind of just like to play into those like funny stereotypes, because another big thing about social media is that relatability is very big. If people can relate to the content, they'll be more likely to like watch the whole thing and like it and share it, which will help boost your viewership.
Now, one of the things we've all been taught in social media posts, if you want to get traction with your audience, is that you need to engage with the audience and comment on the comments. Do you do that? Because you get tens of thousands of comments.
Well, when I started, I did do that.
Yeah.
That was because I did think that would help. It helps in a sense. It helps build more of a community at first, but in the long run, you don't necessarily need to keep commenting. But like in the beginning, it's always good to reward your followers, because the ones who are like, even when you're really small, when you're getting 100 views, the ones who are consistently commenting, those are the ones who are going to keep watching and who are going to build your fan base. And so when you're first starting out, you should like kind of try to respond to comments if you can.
So you now have 7.1 million subscribers.
Yeah.
And those go up, gosh, where is that stat? I mean, it's like 20, 30, 40,000 every time you post something. One video, your highest viewed short, how time flies when you're gaming.
Yeah.
That one I was talking about earlier, 13,730 comments.
Yep.
Insane. So what's the future for you and YouTube? I know I'm going to talk about your pivot into music.
Yeah.
But what is your future in YouTube? What's your plan?
Well, I think I see YouTube more as a stepping stone, because a lot of today's biggest like celebrities and content creators all started on YouTube. And for me, like I think my goal is eventually to get into music and acting and kind of take it to the next level. But YouTube is a way to still connect with like your original fans and maintain your following, and I guess like technically continue your relevancy is a way to continue YouTube, because like at the end of the day, if you go irrelevant or you stop posting for a long time, people are going to forget about you unless you remind them. And
so you plan on continuing to post the parody of video games?
So I actually did recently. I've been getting out of video games. I can still do them because a lot of my initial fans were from video games. It's just I stopped because I don't want to be tied to a video game in particular, which will then limit my reach if that video game is not performing. That's what I actually noticed back when I was doing TikTok. There was a game called Warzone that was like my main game that I was making videos on. And people started to get frustrated with the game. The developers weren't listening to the players. And I started to get less and less views. So that's when I pivoted to like Fortnite, which was the most popular game at the time. And then I started doing that. And then I realized like even nowadays, I don't play that many video games anymore. I used to play a lot. I used to play video games every day. But now I have a lot more on my plate and I don't really have time for it. And so it's all, and I just also kind of, I'm growing up and I'm kind of growing out of that phase of my life. And so I do more general sketch comedy videos that relate to a variety of topics. And it's similar enough to my old content where people will still watch it. And a lot of my videos nowadays actually do really good as well. In comparison to my old videos. It just happens that my old videos that have 80 million views, I posted when there wasn't a lot of competition on the platform. But now they've kind of compensated revenue for, like, revenue has gone up as competition has gone up, essentially. So it's
speaking of revenue, go as deep into this as you want, but I know my audience is curious. How do you monetize this, and how big can you monetize 81 million views?
It's okay. So there's two types of videos on YouTube. There's the long form, which is the horizontal, and there's the short form. Short form videos, because they're a lot easier to make and they're easily digestible, they don't make as much money as long form. So long form views, if I was getting 1 million views, I'd probably translate that to around $3,000 to $5,000 on average for just 1 million long form views. Shorts is tricky. Sometimes it can be like $200 for 1 million views. Sometimes it could be like 1,000 for 5. It's kind of like it's a lower RPM, so you're not going to make as much money. But like when you're making like when you're getting hundreds of millions of views over time, that adds up to a decent chunk of money, and it's livable. It's not like I'm not like rich right now. I'm definitely not rich. I'm still focusing hard on trying to get to that next level of revenue and trying to monetize my platform. But I'm making a great wage for someone my age for sure. Yeah. And another source of revenue comes in with brand deals. Like I work with a lot of popular brands. Like I've worked with PlayStation. I just actually finished a deal with Xbox, and they pay great as well. That's actually, I'd say, probably my primary source of income, brand deals. Yeah.
And is that based on you doing videos for them?
Mm-hmm. I basically just leverage my platform to promote their product.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell us about the pivot into music. When I watched your music video, I was like, this can't be the same guy.
Definitely. I can see. Yeah, that's why I made a new page. Essentially what happened is I've had a passion for music for a while. I just didn't. I was kind of just shy, and B, I didn't know how to start. My two main hobbies were my passions were music and gaming. And gaming just happened to be an easier pathway to success, immediate success for me. Because like my main goal was kind of like, I don't want to be in school. I want to start building a business. And so I got into gaming, but I knew I wanted to do music at some point. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. And a year ago, I was invited to go on a YouTube talent show. And it was just like it was a pretty big YouTuber, but it was just like I would go up, sing a song, and then if I won, I'd get whatever. And we weren't allowed to sing copyrighted music because it's YouTube and they wanted to make money off the video. So they either gave us like a list of pre-made songs that we could sing, or we could like write or bring our own originals. I had never written a song before. And so what ended up happening was one of the guys who's in the band, Crash Adams, I live with them in LA now. He was on the couch playing guitar. He was like, Michael, what's the first melody that comes to your head? And I came up with like a melody on the spot. And I was like, oh, that's actually not bad. Maybe I'll try and use this. And so I basically, over the next like 2 or so hours, I recorded his guitar on my phone. And I was just like basically writing based on the melodies I was coming up with. And I wrote a song, my first song, in like just like 2 or 3 hours. I wrote a song. And so basically the next day I showed it to the guys and like, dude, this is like a really good song. You should do something with it. And I was like, okay. Most people would be like, whatever, this is just a song. I saw potential. I saw an opportunity to start the music page that I wanted to do. And I knew that my audience would be like, what the hell is going on? Where did this come from? Right. And so that's why I started a new page to try and do music. And it's been doing pretty well. But I've definitely had a lot of old fans from my other page come over and be like, oh, I didn't even know you could do this. This is cool. And there's a lot of people who are like, oh, why are you doing this? Go back to doing what you were doing. And I've kind of just, my goal is to pursue both at the same time. It's just a lot for me to handle right now. And I just released my first song, obviously, so I'm trying to focus on getting that out there. But so essentially after the talent show, I didn't end up performing it because it wasn't like fully ready at the time, but I found a producer who worked with my cousin. And we actually had 4 songs now that are fully done. I'm going to be releasing more next year. And So I started this new page to kind of build a new following, and I've come to a realization that I'm never going to lose my old following. They're always going to kind of stick with me because they're my original fans. So I'm going to cater to both. So essentially this year I'm looking into getting editors for my main YouTube channel. I'm going to be doing that while working on music at the same time, and kind of become a hybrid artist, creator, personality is my goal. And then take that to wherever it leads me.
Well, I got to tell you, I'll also make sure there's a link to you performing The Mark You Left, the song you wrote.
Cool.
I mean, the melody is wonderful. The words, you wrote all of those too.
Yeah, I'd never written a song. It just kind of came to me. I'd call it divine intervention or something. I don't know. I
call it highly motivated. And when you and I are highly motivated, we're infinitely creative. Mm-hmm. So you also produced the music video.
I did. Oh, well, did my dad tell you that?
Probably.
Basically, what happened was I hired a team to get the video together and edit it. And I was not happy with the result that they gave me because they basically, we filmed like 6 or 7 takes in different settings. They cut one of the settings entirely and used only 2 takes. And I was like, what the heck? What is this? That you guys have just had like 30-second clips. And so, and I was waiting like a week and a half for them to get this back to me. And I'm like, what is taking so long? I have deadlines that I got to meet because I want to upload this song on a certain day. And so they give it to me and I'm like, okay, just give me the footage. I'll do it myself. And so I sat down. My dad was visiting LA at the time. So we sat down and in 3 hours I put that together and I color graded it. Well, I didn't color grade it. I did a little color correction because they did most of the color grading, which was nice of them. But I fixed a little bit of the colors. I added zooms and keyframes and cuts, and I did it all myself.
No, it is really, really well done. I was inspired knowing you wrote the music, you wrote the words, and you produced it. But then watching you, Michael, perform it, I mean, you are a talent. Watching you do your comedy parodies is one thing. That's kind of, you kind of land as, you know, a reckless, creative kid.
Yeah.
But in the music video, that's a whole different persona. That's
for sure.
Man, that is some serious talent.
Thank
Do
you
you have some role models, people that you're looking to model in the music and entertainment business?
Well, one would be Crash Adams. I've been living with them. I've kind of been under their wing, and they've gone through most of the initial struggles in terms of the music business, and kind of given me some advice. And so, I take that. That's really valuable to me. Their knowledge and what they bring to the table. An influence who's doing well right now, who I can relate to is maybe like Benson Boone. He's my age. He recently really picked up this year. He had a big song, and now he's kind of getting to that next level, and where he's like gonna be like a big artist, and I can see it. And that, to me, when I see someone my age doing that thing, that's when it clicks to me. Is like, okay, I can do that too. I'm the same age. I know I have what it takes, and that's kind of like an inspiration to me. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. So if you fast forward 10 or 20 years, who are you? Where are you? And what are you doing?
10 or 20 years.
Pick 10.
10 years. I'm a household name, and I'm doing whatever I choose to do, whether that's acting, music, comedy. I would like to get to the point where I'm more of a personality, where people will gravitate towards anything I do, whether it's because they know that it's going to be it's going to be quality, it's going to be good, and B, just because they like me as a person, or they enjoy what I bring to the entertainment space.
And at 26, even though there's a lot of 46, 56, and 66-year-olds watching, what advice do you have for people? What is your coaching for their journey?
My advice is work hard. Work really, really hard, and don't let anyone tell you no. I worked for, like, it's granted, most people have to work a lot longer than me to figure this out. But for me, I worked like 1.5 years before seeing a single dollar because I could see an end goal. I knew what was going to be there at the end. And you kind of just know where you're going to end up, and don't let anyone tell you you're not going to get there. Because everyone says this, but like, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Like, you have to just keep trying, because the most people quit before they do it. They just quit because they're tired, or they don't see the end goal, and they don't believe in themselves enough. I'm either going to be homeless or I'm going to get there. And so there's no in between. Yeah.
Famously said by a single 26-year-old.
22.
22, right?
I did get a head start in life, to be fair. I started a lot earlier than most people my age do. I wasn't motivated by similar things. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to party and let's go have fun and waste a lot of time and money. And that just didn't apply to me. That's why I was able to get further ahead. But like, it's never too late to start. There's always new opportunities. There's new technology coming out. I'm sure someone's going to make $1 billion business with AI soon enough. Like ChatGPT is insane. The possibilities are endless. And so there's always new potential to be making a ridiculous amount of money and just being successful in general.
So I love the fact that you're so young, 22, Michael, and you have accomplished so much, but yet we are really, really early on your curve of what you're going to produce and create in your lifetime. And perhaps people will watch this interview 10 or 15 years from now, and perhaps you will watch it and you'll look back and go, wow, I was young, I was naive, but yet I was so courageous. And I expect you're going to accomplish a great deal. You may not have ever heard of this, but you might appreciate this analogy. There's a Stanford University researcher that did a study on kids that I think applies to you and is something really awesome for my audience to think about. She put kids in a controlled environment where they were filmed, and she gave them one marshmallow. You ever heard this story?
I have not, no.
Yeah. Well, you guys, anybody, you can Google it, just the marshmallow study, Stanford University. And she told him, she said, I'll be back in 15 minutes, and if you don't eat the marshmallow, I'll give you another one. And so this is a whole study on the attitude of delayed gratification. Like, do you need to eat the marshmallow now at the expense of more marshmallows later, or can you wait? And then if they, of course, filmed the kids during the 15 minutes, and they filmed all the gyrations they went through. It's just hysterical. There's oftentimes two of them together, and they're debating each other whether they should eat the marshmallow or not. About half the kids did not eat the marshmallow, and she brought them another marshmallow. But then she tracked them for decades in their life.
Wow.
And she found that those that had an appreciation for delayed gratification, in other words, they're willing to pay a price, they're willing to work for something on a quantum level down the road, as opposed to immediate results. All those kids grew into adults that were healthier, happier, and of course, wealthier than the marshmallow eaters. So I tell that story because you're a great example of somebody who did not eat the marshmallow and a great inspiration to all of my audience. So Michael, thank you for being here today for the Authentic Networker podcast. You are at 22, an extraordinary networker.
Thank you.
7.1 million subscribers, 3.4 billion people have already seen you. That ought to be 34 billion in a few years. And I imagine you're going to get and go and be everything you ever dreamed of doing. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.